It would be 5 months later that we were on campus for the opening day of the Iowa football season. And we had gotten there early because they invited all the families of the Iowa Hawkeye cheerleaders for a breakfast so that everybody can meet the parents and the siblings of the Iowa Hawkeye cheerleaders. At the end of this breakfast, Julie walks up to me, and we're standing there talking, and then this big guy walks up and comes up to Julie and says, "Hey, Julie, where's your dad? I want to meet him personally." And she looks over at me when she's kind of having fun with things. She calls me by my first name, and she says, "Well, Jake, here's John. He's right here. He's my dad." And he looked at me and said, took out his big old arm, and he shook my hand, which just killed my whole arm. And he said, "Mr. Blumberg, I'm Jake. I'm Julie's partner on the Iowa Cheer Squad. I just wanted to meet you personally to directly tell you, you have nothing to worry about." I had no idea what this guy's talking about. But as a dad, there were a lot of things going through my mind. It would be about an hour and a half later that my wife Cindy and I are up in the stadium for the first time ever, seeing our daughter down on this huge major stage. And then we saw them move over to the sideline and begin to do their thing. And this is kind of what I saw, and I knew exactly what Jake was talking about. I really hate to meet Jake when he's 50. His rotator cuff is going to be hurting, I guarantee you, right? And it would be about a year later, we're at Happy Valley at Penn State University. Now, this is even before the people actually arrived there. Oh, got some Penn State fans. All right. This is before they ever, the fans are getting there. They're just warming up. And I will tell you as a dad watching this, this is the angle of this camera is exactly what it feels like. It feels like they're throwing your daughter above the second tier of the entire stadium. But it would be about 6 months later, we were no longer in beautiful autumn settings in football stadiums, but we were actually on a very cold winter night in February in the Iowa Hawkeye arena where they play basketball. And it was this night where they had gone out and they had gone out to the court. They always do this when they what they call an ESPN timeout. And cheerleaders take their place, and then they would make a corporate announcement. And this corporate announcement would be something like, the Iowa Hawkeyes would like to welcome SCN, right? And of course, SCN would have paid for that Hawkeye announcement, right? But they just stand there. And as soon as the announcement's over, the pep band kicks in, they start doing the fight song. And then they're done. They go off. But they're standing there, and they're waiting for the corporate announcement. Julie is out there with all of them. And all of a sudden, Julie just leaves the court. I look over at my wife and said, "Where's Julie going?" I didn't come see the basketball game. I came to see the ESPN timeouts, right? And they're so perfectly lined up, and there's this gap in the line. And the pep band kicks in, and the cheerleaders are doing their thing in perfect rhythm, but there's a gap in the line. About halfway through the song, the fight song, Julie just comes pepping out, comes back in. She just jumps immediately into rhythm with perfect sync with all the rest of the cheerleaders, and it all ends, and she runs off just like she normally does. That night, we were going out to dinner with Julie, and I said, "Hey, Jules, what was the deal? I didn't know you could just leave the court." And she said, "Well, I didn't know if I could, Dad. But there was this little girl on the side, and she was precious, and I had to go." And that was the end of that. I get home that night. I get back to Naperville, and all of a sudden, of course, I had to check my email when I got home. It was 11 o'clock at night, but I checked my email, and there was this email from Julie, and it just said, "The little girl." I opened the email, and it just said, "Hey, Dad, you remember the little girl I told you about? Actually, the Iowa photographer captured the two of us together. I thought you might just want to see it." And so I opened the attachment, and when I opened the attachment, this is what I saw. You see, here's the deal. It was such a fun experience. Seeing our Julie on the big stage and all the fun that came with it and the other cheer parents we got to know and love. Became almost like a family. And Julie will tell you it was a lot of fun. All the flips and all the flies and being on a major stage and yes, even a concussion at the beginning of her sophomore year. She would tell you it was all worth it for these kind of moments. You see, here's the deal. What are you going to do with what you've been given? And if our Julie was standing here today, what she would tell you is every time she got to put that uniform on, and I might remember, she worked hard to get that uniform. It was an amazing, hard experience, a hard tryout that she got. But the question is then, what do you do with it? And she said, every time I got to put that uniform on, I got to give it away. And that's what our core does for us. Regardless of the kind of business that you run, regardless of the kind of connections that we make, the question is the water pouring out of the well?